Okay, let's dive into today's news. It's a whirlwind of climate, energy, and political developments. From a second Trump administration shaking things up to some alarming climate warnings. We've got a lot to cover.
It's certainly a time of intense change and uncertainty, especially when we look at how politics and the environment are interacting.
Let's jump right into the political arena. The second Trump administration. They aren't wasting any time. They're making their mark on climate and environmental policy.
Well, the appointment of Chris Wright, a former fracking CEO, as energy secretary, that's a clear signal. It shows where their priorities lie.
Wright's vow to unleash American energy production. That definitely raises questions about the future of clean energy. All those initiatives, it's a stark contrast to what we saw in the Biden era, all that focus on climate action.
And the administration's decision to freeze federal climate spending. It's causing ripples. Projects are on hold. Jobs are in limbo. And there is just this feeling of uncertainty across the board.
Even Republican-led states, they're feeling the impact. They were counting on that funding. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, how they handle this new reality.
The EPA, they're going through a major shakeup too. Career employees are getting demoted, and they're being replaced. With political appointees, there's even talk of firings. Over 1,000 EPA workers, many of them focused on climate change, possibly losing their jobs.
This raises serious concerns about political interference in scientific agencies. And what does this mean for evidence-based policy?
And on top of that, we have the nomination of Neil Jacobs. To head NOAA, Jacobs is a scientist, but he was linked to that Sharpiegate controversy, where a hurricane map was altered, apparently with a Sharpie, to back up a claim made by President Trump.
Oh, right. That incident. It really damaged public trust in the agency. So with this nomination, people are worried. They're worried about history repeating itself.
And then the administration is also dismantling environmental justice programs across all the federal agencies. This reverses years of effort, years of trying to address the unequal impact of pollution on marginalized communities.
This is a huge step backwards for environmental equity. These communities are already facing the worst of the environmental problems.
And then, just to add to it all, President Trump has suggested eliminating FEMA entirely, shifting the whole responsibility for disaster recovery to individual states.
Wow, that's radical, that proposal. I can't imagine many states would be happy with that, especially those states. They get hit by hurricanes or wildfires frequently.
Yeah, you're right. Republican lawmakers, they're already pushing back. They're concerned about the financial burden it would put on their states. This would be a massive cost shift. And many states just aren't equipped to handle it.
And speaking of resources, the administration has taken offline a vital climate justice data tool. This tool was used to identify disadvantaged communities, the communities most vulnerable to climate change. It helped direct funds to them.
That data tool was crucial. It ensured that climate investments were actually reaching the communities that needed them most. Taking it offline is a setback, a major setback for equitable climate action.
It's a blow to transparency and accountability. Thankfully, though, we have a group of scientists. They're working against the clock to restore the tool, to make that data public again. They recognize how crucial it is to ensure that climate solutions don't leave anyone behind.
It's a good reminder that even with these political setbacks, there are people working tirelessly to make sure climate action is truly equitable. They're working to uphold environmental justice.
Now let's shift our focus. Let's look at the climate. It seems like every day there are new warnings, new alarming discoveries.
You're not wrong. As all these political battles are going on, the planet, it's sending us signals. Climate change is accelerating faster than we originally thought. There's a new study. It shows that global warming is increasing at a rate 50% higher than in previous decades.
That's terrifying. What are the consequences of this faster warming? What are we talking about?
Well, one major consequence. It could disrupt a vital ocean current by as early as 2050. This current is key. It regulates global weather patterns, and if it's disrupted, it could be devastating for coastal communities and ecosystems worldwide.
We're already seeing how climate change is affecting our oceans, like Greenland's ice sheet. It's fracturing at an alarming rate. Deeper cracks, wider cracks. It's all contributing to rising sea levels, and that threatens coastal communities all over the globe.
It's a dire situation. Even a small increase in warming, just half a degree, could triple the area on Earth that's too hot for humans to live comfortably. Large areas of land could become uninhabitable, leading to mass displacement and resource scarcity.
It's hard to grasp the scale of it all, the potential consequences, and we're already seeing the economic impacts of climate change here at home in California. those devastating wildfires, fueled by drought and extreme heat. State Farm is seeking a 22% rate hike on insurance.
This just highlights it. The growing economic costs of climate change, it's not just an environmental issue, it's hitting our wallets, our homes, our way of life. And as climate risks increase, we can expect these costs to rise.
The transition to clean energy. Many see it as the solution to climate change, but it's facing challenges. As the political landscape shifts, Shell, the energy giant, they just pulled out of a massive offshore wind project in New Jersey.
They said it was because of market challenges and regulatory uncertainty. Under the new administration, this raises concerns about the future of offshore wind in the United States. It was seen as a key driver for clean energy growth.
It's a major setback for the industry, especially with New Jersey's clean energy goals. They're ambitious. And to make things worse, the state has now stopped approvals for new offshore wind projects, all of them.
This is a potential slowdown for the whole industry, which had been gaining momentum. It seems like the political climate, it's creating uncertainty, and investors, they're hesitant to commit to these large-scale projects.
Even the electric vehicle market, which has been growing like crazy, is facing headwinds. The demand for EVs in California is stalled. And most automakers, they're not going to meet the state's zero-emission mandate for 2026, except for Tesla.
So the transition to electric vehicles, it might be slower, more challenging than we thought. The auto industry is struggling to keep up with California's goals, their ambitious goals, for clean transportation.
On the East Coast, Maryland lawmakers are dealing with their own energy challenges. They've proposed legislation to expand energy capacity. They're aiming for a mix: natural gas, solar, and nuclear power.
And this is sparking debate over their clean energy goals. And whether natural gas, a fossil fuel, should be part of it, it's complex, balancing affordability, reliability, and sustainability in a world where the energy landscape is changing so rapidly.
And even amidst these energy debates, we're seeing some smaller efforts, but they're significant. Like Oatly, the oat milk company. They're looking into replacing gas boilers with electric heat pumps in their factories.
This shows the challenges of decarbonizing the food industry. It's a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. Oatly's move is positive, though. It shows that companies, even in high-emission sectors, are looking for ways to be more environmentally friendly. That's great to see. Companies like Oatly stepping up. It shows that it's possible. Decarbonization, even in industries that rely so much on fossil fuels.
It's a reminder. Change can come from anywhere, even unexpected places. As we're dealing with all these big political and economic shifts, it's important to remember individual actions and innovation can make a difference.
Speaking of individual actions, the Trump administration's decision to take that climate justice data tool offline, that's concerning, the one designed to help direct funds to those communities hit hardest by climate change.
Yeah, it does seem like a step backwards when it comes to transparency and accountability. Can you remind me how it actually worked? That tool, why is its removal such a big deal?
It used a lot of data points, things like income levels, how much pollution people are exposed to, health outcomes, to create a map. It showed which communities were most vulnerable to climate change. But by taking it offline, the administration is basically making it harder to identify and prioritize these communities for funding and support.
So it's not just about the data, it's about what happens because that data is not there. It could mean resources are misallocated, and the most vulnerable communities, they fall even further behind.
Exactly. It raises questions about the administration's commitment to environmental justice, making sure climate solutions help everyone.
It is a shame, but it's good to know that a group of scientists are working on it to restore the tool, to make that data public again. It shows that people are willing to fight for transparency and hold the government accountable.
Yeah, it's a reminder. We can't just rely on the government. Citizen engagement and scientific advocacy, they're crucial if we want to make sure climate action is equitable and effective.
So let's change gears for a minute. Let's talk about some of the climate news. It's alarming, it seems like every day. New warnings about how climate change is getting worse, faster.
It's true. We've seen those reports about Greenland's ice sheet fracturing at an alarming rate, which is adding to rising sea levels. And that's a threat to coastal communities all over the world.
And then there's that new study revealing that global warming is increasing way faster than before, 50% higher.
Yeah.
That's pretty terrifying. What does this accelerated warming mean for the planet?
Well, one thing, it could disrupt a major ocean current as early as 2050. The Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, it's vital. It regulates global weather patterns.
I kind of remember hearing about that, but can you remind me, why is it so important? What happens if it gets disrupted?
Imagine a giant conveyor belt in the ocean, moving warm water from the tropics to the poles and cold water back to the equator. That's the circulation. It spreads heat around the globe, and that affects weather patterns, ocean temperatures, even rainfall.
So if that conveyor belt slows down or stops, the whole system is thrown off.
Exactly. We could see more extreme weather, changes in rainfall, disruptions to ecosystems in the ocean. The consequences would be global.
And the effects of climate change. We're seeing them
Yeah.
locally, too. California's wildfires, all that drought and extreme heat. State Farm wants to raise insurance rates by 22%.
It shows us the economic cost of climate change. As these events become more common, more severe, we'll see insurance premiums go up. It'll be even harder for people to recover from disasters.
It's a vicious cycle. And it's not just California. Even a half-degree rise in warming could triple the area on Earth that's too hot for humans to live comfortably.
It's a sobering thought. Think about it. Large areas of land, uninhabitable, mass displacement, not enough resources, maybe even conflict.
It's a grim picture. But there are some bright spots. Did you see that story about seaweed and how it could reduce methane emissions from cows?
Yeah, it's a great example of how nature can sometimes help us solve the problems we create. Think about cows. They're a major source of methane, a really potent greenhouse gas. But if we add seaweed to their feed, we can reduce their emissions significantly.
It sounds kind of crazy, but I'm intrigued. How does seaweed work? How does it reduce methane?
Well, some types of seaweed have compounds that block the enzymes in a cow's gut, the ones that produce methane. It's a natural way to deal with a big source of greenhouse gases.
That's amazing. Seaweed, having that kind of impact, it shows us we need to be open to all sorts of solutions, even the unconventional ones.
Absolutely, thinking outside the box, that's how we'll address the climate crisis. We need to use the power of nature.
And speaking of solutions, there's that good news from Paris, the Seine River. It's made a remarkable comeback. It shows what's possible. With consistent clean water policies, environmental restoration can happen.
The Seine used to be so polluted, but after decades of work, it's now a thriving ecosystem. It's a story of hope. We can reverse the damage, restore our planet, if we're committed.
It's inspiring to see what we can achieve when we work together towards a common goal. And speaking of working together, there are so many climate victories happening all over the world. Often we don't even hear about them.
From local projects to legal battles, people are fighting for a better future, and they're making progress every single day. These victories, big and small, they show us collective action works. It can make a difference.
It's a reminder we're not helpless. We can do something about climate change, individually and together, to create a more sustainable future.
And those individual actions, they can inspire others, create a ripple effect, leading to even more change.
So let's go back to politics for a moment. Let's look deeper at those policy changes. The Trump administration's moves are definitely shaking things up in the environmental community.
Sure. Appointing Chris Wright, former Fracking CEO, as energy secretary, that's a big statement. About their priorities, his talk about unleashing American energy production, it suggests a shift toward fossil fuels, away from clean energy.
And the freeze on federal climate spending, it's causing uncertainty and disruption. Products are stalled, jobs are uncertain. The clean energy transition seems to be losing steam.
It's a setback, for sure, for climate action. And for those communities that would benefit from those investments, the freeze is impacting projects everywhere, even in states with Republican governors.
And it's causing some tension within the Republican Party. Some lawmakers are worried about what it will mean for the economy and the environment if these projects are stopped.
And the EPA, they're going through a big change. Career employees demoted, replaced with political appointees. It makes you wonder about political influence in scientific and environmental decisions.
It is worrying. We need our environmental agencies to be led by experts, people who base their decisions on science, on evidence, not on politics.
And taking apart those environmental justice programs, that's a big blow to those communities already hit hardest by pollution. It's a step in the wrong direction. For equity, for environmental protection.
It's not right. These communities, they're the most vulnerable to climate change, to pollution, and yet they're the ones being left behind.
And Trump's idea about eliminating FEMA, that sparked a lot of debate. Republican lawmakers aren't happy about it. They know how important FEMA is for disaster response and recovery.
It would be a huge shift. States would have to deal with all those climate disasters, which are becoming more frequent, more severe. It's hard to see that going well.
And remember that climate justice data tool the administration took offline. That's a problem. That tool was so important for making sure those climate investments were going to the right places, the communities that needed them most.
It hurts transparency and accountability. It's good that some scientists are working hard to restore that tool to make the data public again.
It shows us we can't be complacent. We have to stay informed, stay involved, keep advocating for a sustainable future.
Absolutely. We can't let these setbacks stop us. We have to fight for climate action, for environmental justice, hold our leaders accountable, demand policies that put our planet first, and the well-being of all communities.
Now, let's talk energy. The sector is facing big changes. The administration seems to be focusing on fossil fuels again.
Yeah, Shell pulling out of that offshore wind project in New Jersey, that's a sign of the uncertainty in the renewable energy industry. They talked about market challenges and regulatory uncertainty with the Trump administration as reasons for their decision.
And New Jersey putting a stop to approvals for new offshore wind projects. That just adds to it. The industry is facing headwinds. This slowdown comes at a bad time. We need to be moving to clean energy fast to address climate change.
It's a bad sign. We need to be speeding up the transition to clean energy, not slowing it down. The future of our planet depends on it.
And in California, demand for electric vehicles has stalled. Most automakers are going to miss the state's target for zero-emission vehicles in 2026, except for Tesla.
It's a sign. The auto industry is struggling to meet California's goals. For clean transportation, those goals are ambitious.
This shows us we need more innovation, more support from policymakers to get people to use electric vehicles. We need to make EVs more affordable, more accessible to everyone if we want a truly clean transportation system.
In Maryland, lawmakers are debating energy policy. They propose legislation to expand energy capacity using a mix of natural gas, solar, and nuclear power. It shows how complicated this is, balancing affordability, reliability, and sustainability.
It is a balancing act. We have to make sure everyone can afford energy, that it's reliable, but we also need to transition to cleaner sources to protect our planet.
And while those big energy debates are going on, some companies are taking their own steps, like Oatly. They're looking at ways to decarbonize their operations, trying to find clean heat alternatives for their factories. It shows that there's a movement within businesses to cut emissions.
It is encouraging to see companies step up, taking responsibility for their impact on the environment, even when there's so much political uncertainty. These actions might inspire others to follow, create a ripple effect of positive change. All these examples show us political decisions matter. They're shaping the energy landscape. They're influencing how fast we move to clean energy. It's a situation that keeps changing. It needs close attention and continued advocacy for sustainable solutions.
Let's shift our focus now to some stories that don't get as much attention, but they're important. They show us how climate, nature, and human actions are all connected. These stories often reveal how climate change is affecting our world in subtle ways, but profound ways.
Like that news about bird flu, a deadly strain of H5N1 detected in milk. From dairy herds in Nevada, it reminds us zoonotic diseases can spread. We need to be vigilant, prepared to protect public health and stop these diseases from spreading.
It is concerning. We have to be proactive, monitoring potential threats, addressing them, especially as climate change makes it easier for diseases to spread.
And then there's the gray whale, the one that died off the coast of Los Angeles. It highlights all the threats marine life is facing. Pollution, ships hitting them, getting caught in fishing gear. It's a lot for these animals to handle. Their survival is at stake.
We need to protect our oceans and all the life in them. Our actions have consequences. We need to be aware of how we're affecting the natural world.
Speaking of impact, let's go back to that seaweed solution for a minute, using it to cut down methane emissions from cows. Nature sometimes has the answers to the problems we create.
It tells us we need to be open to new ideas, even if they seem strange at first. We need to harness the power of natural processes to help with environmental challenges. Think outside the box. Embrace new solutions.
Innovation is key.
Yeah.
If we want to solve the climate crisis, find ways to live sustainably that benefit the planet and everyone on it, we need to invest in research, support those who are coming up with new ideas, create a culture where people are encouraged to be creative, to solve problems.
And look at the farmers in Africa, in the mountains, adapting to climate change. They're teaching us valuable lessons about adaptation. They're on the front lines, dealing with the impacts. Their experiences can help us build more resilient communities.
They're so resourceful, so determined. It inspires us to find ways to thrive. In a world that's changing, adapt to the challenges. We can learn from them, their traditional knowledge, their new practices, their commitment to their land, to making a living.
It's a reminder, even when things are tough, we can overcome challenges, adapt, innovate, even with the changing climate.
And for a bit of optimism, look at the Seine River in Paris. The way it's been restored, it shows us what's possible when we put in the effort, when we have the political will, when we commit to long-term solutions.
It gives us hope. We can reverse the damage. We can restore our ecosystems with dedicated action. It shows we can make a difference. If we work together, if we don't give up on our planet, we can create a better future. But it takes collective action, commitment, and belief. Belief in our ability to change things.
Yeah, it's a powerful symbol, the Seine, that change is possible. Even when the challenges seem huge, it shows what humans can do with ingenuity, determination, and a commitment to taking care of the environment.
It makes me hopeful. We can restore our planet, protect it for generations to come. And speaking of hope, there's all this bad climate news, the political setbacks, but there are also victories happening all over the world. We just don't hear about them much.
Absolutely. Local communities, grassroots groups, individuals, they're all taking action, pushing for change. And they're making a difference. From lawsuits to new solutions, these victories, whether they're big or small, they prove something. Collective action matters. It's a reminder. We're not powerless when it comes to climate change.
It's inspiring. It keeps us going. Knowing our efforts matter, even if they seem small. They're part of something bigger, a movement for change, like a ripple effect. Each action creates a wave. It spreads, inspires others to act. And together, we become a force for good.
Exactly. We all have a part to play in creating a sustainable future. What can we do? We can reduce our own carbon footprint. We can advocate for policy changes, support businesses that care about sustainability. Even just raising awareness, it all counts.
It's about the choices we make every day. Choices that reflect our values. Choices that contribute to a healthier planet. It's about using our voices, our votes, our money to support the shift to a world that's sustainable and equitable.
You got it. This is a turning point, a crossroads. What we do today is going to decide our future. We can keep going down the path of doing nothing, of pretending it's not happening, or we can face the challenge head on, seize the opportunity, and build a world that's sustainable and thriving.
So as we wrap up this dive into the news, what are the main things you want our listeners to take away?
Well, the most important thing, the challenges are big, but we can overcome them. There's hope, there's progress, and there's still time to act.
And how do we turn that hope into action? What can people actually do to make a difference?
It can feel overwhelming, trying to figure out where to start. Focus on what you can control, learn about the issues, stay informed, talk to people, your friends, your family, your community, have real conversations.
So it's about being a better citizen, more informed, aware of the challenges.
Yeah.
And the opportunity.
Exactly. And once you're informed, make sure your actions match your values. Cut down your carbon footprint. Make sustainable choices in your life. Support those businesses and organizations that are committed to sustainability. Advocate for policies that promote clean energy, environmental justice, climate action.
It's about doing something, anything, no matter how small, and using your voice to spread the message of change.
Don't underestimate yourself. Don't underestimate what you can do. It might feel like a drop in the ocean, but remember, even the biggest ocean, it's made of drops, countless drops. When we all come together, we create a wave of change that can't be stopped.
That's a powerful thought. Thanks for guiding us through all of this. The news, it's complex, it's always changing, it's been eye-opening, and I feel ready to take action.
The journey continues. I'm glad you're here with me. Stay curious, stay involved, stay hopeful. We decide what the future looks like together. We can build a world that's sustainable and just.